Squale does something awesome, something that I really like. They work with a lot of independent watch stores, watch clubs, watch ADs, and they create these limited edition versions of their popular models. The most famous version of this is the TGV Sub-39 Squale. Well, in today's video, I'm going to feature two of these limited edition watches. Both of these watches come from a store called What a Watch. It's a South Korean store. They do ship worldwide, so check out their website in the description below. And they offered to send me these two watches in for the review. Now, I get to keep one of these watches after the review is done. And at the end of this video, I will tell you which one I decided to choose, the black dial version or the white dial version. Now, in terms of specs, the two watches are very similar, almost identical. Case design, they both have 39mm diameter, 47.5mm from one lug to another. They both are 12.2mm thick, including the domed sapphire crystal, and they have 20mm lug width. Both cases are made out of stainless steel. They both have sapphire crystals with some AR coating. Both have 300 meters of water resistance, and both are powered by the same movement, ETA 2824-2. However, the pricing and the quantity of the watches are different. So this vintage-inspired black diver is limited to 500 pieces and it's priced at $15.99. The white dial version is limited to 300 pieces and this one is priced at $14.99, so about $100 less. When you order a custom limited edition series of watches from Squale, there aren't too many things that you can customize. For instance, I believe that these cases are the same as cases on regular sub-39mm diver, which is not a bad thing because these cases are done quite well. They have all polished finish, even though it kind of appears as if it has a two-tone finish because of these sharp lines. It almost feels like it has brushed and polished alternation, but they are all polished. We have a crown at the 3 o'clock position, once again, all polished finish. It's a sign crown with the Squale logo, and that's my first negative with these watches. And it's not exclusive to these limited edition. All Squale Sub-39 models have this crown. It's sort of this hybrid onion crown that isn't the easiest to operate because of the way it's situated in the case, the way the bezel protrudes past the case. If you have big sausage fingers like me, you might have a little bit of troubles operating this crown. I mean, it's still operational, it's just not as easy as it could be. Overall, the case design of this watch is very vintage inspired. Of course, Squale has a long history of making cases, including for some well-known companies like Blancpain, so they know what they're doing in terms of case design. I like what they're doing with the case here. It is sort of broken down into three separate parts. We have a case back portion, then we have the middle of the case, the lug structure portion, and then you have the bezel sitting on top. One thing that I'm happy about is the fact that it's not a signed case. Some of the Squale watches, especially in the past, did have Squale's signature on the side of the case. This one here doesn't have that, although it does have the double Squale logo on the dial. Speaking of the dial and dial design, it's actually one of those things that you can custom make and customize if you're making one of these limited edition watches. And what a watch, that's hard to say, what a watch did here is quite nice. First of all, they got rid of that date window cutout. Bravo. The date window cutout on the regular Sub-39 really bothers me. I think it throws off the whole symmetry of the watch because we already have these Arabic numerals for 12, 3, 6, and 9. Having the date window there just doesn't go with the overall aesthetic. Getting rid of it, good riddance in my book. Love that choice. Also, the two different dial colors and dial feels almost create this good separation between these two watches. Because on the surface, really, it's the same watch, just with different dial colors. However, that separation of different dial colors and dial combination really makes these watches completely different. One feels very vintage inspired, the other feels oddly modern. Now, I am usually not the one for white dials. However, on this watch, I quite liked it. I think it works with the overall aesthetic, and on the wrist, it feels very nice. It wears like a modern watch. Now, of course, the two watches wear very similarly, because they have the same case design. So even though both watches are technically 39 millimeters in case diameter, the actual bezel diameter is about 41 millimeters. So the watches wear larger on the wrist. You sort of get best of both worlds. You get the legibility and the size of a more modern watch, yet you get comfort on the wrist of a smaller vintage watch. I quite like what Squale is doing with these cases and protrusion of the bezel. The design of this bezel also makes it much easier to operate, and to my surprise, the two versions of this watch have very different feeling bezel action. I had no idea that was one of the things that you could choose when you were designing these watches. So the vintage inspired watch has sort of a delicate, low resistance, nice, easy to move bezel. A little bit too easy to move. In fact, last couple of weeks of spending time with this watch, I did turn the bezel by accident quite a few times, getting it caught on a shirt or on a tabletop or something like that. So the bezel does have very low resistance. The white version of this watch has more modern feeling bezel. It has more resistance, it has more clickiness, a more tactile feel. I really like bezel action on this white dial version. I think it just feels better. And of course, both versions of this watch line up perfectly. These are not Seikos. Other than the different feeling bezel action, the two watches also have slightly different design cues on their bezels. The triangle for the 0 position is done in a different color. Now both triangles are loomed, so are the dials. Here are the loom shots for you. As you can see, the two watches have different types of looms. The black dial version has a green loom and the white dial version has this blue loom. Out of the two, I personally don't have a preference. I think they both work equally well. However, I will say this, they could use a few more layers of loom on that triangle at the 0 o'clock position on the bezel. The dial and the hands are loomed fine. The triangle could use a little bit more loom. These two watches by default come with different types of straps. So this vintage inspired version comes on a Horveen leather strap. I like this leather strap. It's very thin and very fitting with the overall look and design of this watch. However, it's not my favorite because this is essentially a diver watch with 300 meters of water resistance. Having it by default come on a leather strap sort of puts it in a box of desk divers. Even though this is technically a desk diver, I still wish it came by default maybe on a rubber strap and leather strap was an option. I know they offer NATO straps as an option for this watch, but I think by default having it on a rubber strap would make more sense. The white dial version of this watch comes on a NATO strap. It's a seatbelt NATO, really good quality. Black NATO kind of fits the overall aesthetic of this timepiece, and I also really like the hardware on it. It's a good quality NATO, like this loop here moves back and forth. That's a really good design choice. I need to upgrade my bun NATO straps to have that. So needless to say, both watches are a bit of strap monsters. I think the white dial version is a little bit harder to match with different straps. This vintage inspired version pretty much goes with wide variety of different straps and wide variety of different outfits. Lastly, the packaging is different between the two watches. So this black vintage inspired version of the watch comes in a small handmade wooden box. It's a Japanese wooden box, which is pretty cool because think about it. This is a Swiss made watch from an Italian watch company ordered in limited edition for a South Korean watch store that comes with a Japanese wooden box. We are really living in international times. Pretty crazy. Coming back to the packaging, this white dial version comes in a leather wallet or leather passport style packaging. So the two different versions of this watch have different type of packaging. I quite like that attention to detail. It would have been very easy to give both watches the same packaging or just have the watches come in default packaging. I like that this company took extra step to create something different, something unique. However, this watch is not perfect, or I should say these watches aren't perfect. There are some small negatives, some small nitpicks. One of the negatives I already mentioned, this crown is just not the easiest to operate. Another Smaller nitpick, I guess, would be, especially on this white dial version, I wish that they loomed the bezel. This would make this watch just a little bit more special, would make it stand out from your regular Sub-39, and it would fit with the overall aesthetic of the watch, this sort of modern diver. Or if they didn't loom the bezel, they could have gone with the fully loomed dial. Again, it would just make this watch stand out, make it a little bit more special. Also, both of these watches have ghost position. As I mentioned, they are powered by ETA 2824-2 movement. Great Swiss-made movement, very reliable, easy to service, but that movement has a date functionality. As I pointed out, there is no date cutout on a dial, which creates a ghost position. I wish they used a no date version of this movement in these watches. Now, I know that majority of people wouldn't notice it or would not mind this small detail, but I am reviewing these watches, so I just want to give you my honest opinion, my honest thoughts. In conclusion, both watches are quite nice, and both watches surprisingly work in a very different market. It just shows you how a few small design tweaks, design details can make each watch so different. Having these faux patina accents on one dial makes it appear very vintage inspired. Having white dial, more of a modern motif on the other one, makes it seem like a very modern diver, even though it is housed in this vintage inspired case. Out of the two, I prefer the black dial version. I'm a sucker for a good vintage inspired watch, and I think what the watch agrees with me. I think they know that the black dial version is going to be the more popular one. That's why they created 500 pieces for that one and only 300 pieces for the white one. Whichever option you choose, I think you will be satisfied with the overall quality. I appreciate you watching this video until the end. Please give it a thumbs up if you enjoyed it. Subscribe to the YouTube channel. We release new videos every week. And leave a comment in the comment section below. Let me know what you think about these limited edition watches. Do you like them? Do you not like them? Which one out of the two would you choose? Leave your thoughts in the comment section below. I always enjoy reading them. By the way, today on my wrist, I'm wearing my Tudor Black Bay 58. I did a full review of this watch. That video can be found on the YouTube channel. I will also leave it linked in the description below. Also, in the description below, there are a couple of other links. There's a secret link, and there's a link to bondnativstraps.com. Check them out if you're curious. Thanks for watching this one. I hope you enjoyed it. I hope you had fun, and I'll see you guys next time. Bye. One do you prefer? Do you like this one? Or do you like this one? Which one do you like? This one? Or this one? White one? You prefer the white dial version? Full of surprises, Mr. Bond. Full of surprises.